Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Healthcare Heroes Force for another informational interview session. But first, allow me to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us tonight. Second, we are giving away this Logitech webcam, which is the C920E model. We are going to have the raffle towards the end of the interview. Those who want to join the raffle, please write your name in the chat box. So tonight we have Joshua Karrasch, CEO of Dynamic Specialties Group, as our guest. And as you know, I have been pairing our interviewees with the ones who are newer to the ecosystem. So we have partnered Joshua with Andrew Carr to ask the questions. I'm going to have Andrew tell us about himself briefly before he starts interviewing Joshua. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate it. So for everyone that doesn't know me, my name is Andrew. I am currently an advanced EMT in the greater Atlanta area, and I've been in the medical field since I was 17, started out as a lifeguard, and then did a whole bunch of other things, which led me to working on an ambulance for one of the nation's busiest 911 systems. I found out about Salesforce through probably a lot of you on TikTok, through Bradley Rice, actually. And did the 5-day challenge, and I was like, this is for me. And then realized very quickly that a lot of the concepts made sense and a lot of them didn't. But I knew that I wanted to transition from a more hands-on role into a remote role in tech, just to get away from the healthcare field, which led me to the Healthcare Heroes Force, which Lori graciously invited me to, and then sent me messages the other day, was like, hey, would you love to do an interview? And I was like, I sure would. Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. Yeah. So thank you so much, Lori, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Josh, for hopping on this call and taking time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Right. All right, Lori, are we ready?
Go ahead, Andrew.
All right. So Josh, tell me about yourself.
It's a broad question.
Yeah.
So I'm 41 years old. I am a serial entrepreneur. I started in medicine at about 10 years old when I read my dad's EMT basic book. At about 12, anywhere, someplace in between there, 10, 11, 12 years old, I started pushing wheelchairs in an ER at the local hospital, getting used to medicine. It became my passion. At 14, I landed my lifeguard. At 16, I became an EMT basic, firefighter, nurse's aide. At 18, I got my paramedic, and at 20, I became a Navy hospital corpsman. I worked for approximately 10 years as a paramedic in different environments. I stayed, even when I was in the Navy, I was working as a medic out in the civilian world to keep my skills up. And I had my last call in April, it was April 27th or April 17th, 2009, after I graduated college. And it wasn't a real good time to graduate college, by the way. If some of you may remember, it wasn't exactly economically viable time, but the only place with positive job growth was in DC.
You turn down.
And so...
Music.
Excuse me, folks, somebody might have a hot mic. Perhaps we might need to mute. And so we were working. So I decided I was going to go to medical school. That had been my goal for many years. And so then I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? And DC had the only positive job growth in the nation. So I ended up in DC, falling back on my construction skills. Actually, I was working as a finish carpenter, and I had built UC Santa Cruz's veterans program while I was there, and I thought that'd be a great way to get in up a Capitol Hill. Turns out that was not the case. 189 no's from hand-delivered resumes taught me that. But even a rabbit doesn't trust themselves to one hole. So I applied to all sorts of jobs, and it happened that the Pentagon Force Protection Agency called me back and asked if I'd like a job while I was tearing down decks in the middle of the hot DC summer, about July timeframe. And I said, absolutely. And so I worked there in physical security for about 3 years, cross-trained and became a counterintelligence agent for about a year and a half. And while I was sitting in my government office, and it was kind of nice, I had my own office, nice desk, good windows. I was like, God, this is boring. I need to do something else. And so I decided to become an entrepreneur. And that was about 2013. And it went well till about 2017 when it failed, and I bankrupted on my first business. It was a retail business, and Oddly enough, I'd never done retail, kind of foolhardy to jump right into that one as my first venture, but I learned a lot. My first MBA cost me about 13,000, and my second one cost me that bankruptcy. But I moved on, and it ended me back in federal service as a contractor. And I didn't make that transition so smoothly, actually. I had been an owner of my own business, free to do as I wished. And so I was working for Capgemini Government Solutions, and I picked up a DHS contract as a software tester. I taught myself how to software test quite by accident, and they liked that story, so they hired me for it. And I was out chatting, and I kind of got myself rolled off the project by accident. I was trying to do business development when I really should have been doing quality assurance. And so they put me on the bench, and another Navy veteran walked by who happened to be Mr. Jim Hutcherson. He was their Salesforce practice lead. And he asked what I was doing. I said, well, I explained the story, and he was like, good, learn Salesforce. And I had never heard of Salesforce before in my life. So I got on the Googles and started learning about it. And I learned about Trailhead, but nobody really guided me. So I picked up some random person's trail mix to become an admin. And I studied it, and I made it through, and I went and took the test, and I failed again. And eventually I used Focus on Force, and I learned, and I memorized the exams, honestly. I did all 6 of those exams until I could do them from memory, right? I eventually passed the Salesforce admin exam. Later on down the road, somebody asked me how to be an Salesforce administrator. And so I directed them to a trail mix, and I was looking for the right one. And it was at that point I realized I'd only completed 52% of the recommended Salesforce trail mix for preparing for your Salesforce admin exam. And that would explain why I was having such a problem. So I went back and finished my Trailhead, and my career started to grow from there. I picked up a project at FDA where we did a Salesforce implementation, and then moved over to USDA for a bit. Got an opportunity to move into Fontiva, where I worked with associations for a couple of years, about a year. And then my federal client invited me back, which was how I got my company off the ground, Dynamic Specialties Group. So they brought me back as a subcontractor, started Dynamic Specialties Group, and we've been slowly building it since 2018. We now have 7 employees, and we just landed another federal contractor. We're helping other people grow into Salesforce and improve their lives. Really, our purpose is to live well and help others do the same.
Congratulations on that new contract. For some of us, can you just briefly explain what is a Salesforce consultant? What do you do at Dynamic Specialties?
Well, what don't I do, right? At this point, I'm 6 times certified, but these days I don't do much Salesforce, and honestly, I do a lot more managing. I project manage for a large Salesforce implementer, and but being techno-functional, having my developer certification, having done some development, I wouldn't call myself an advanced developer in the least, but I've got my dev chops, and so I can listen, I can participate, I can guide, and I can hear problems coming down the pike where if I had not had that experience of hands-on configuration as an administrator, as a consultant, as a app builder and a developer, I wouldn't be able to help guide and support that. But as a Salesforce consultant, really, I look at people's businesses, I understand what their challenges are, and I look for opportunities to apply technology to make their lives easier. I really like to focus on helping people automate their business processes, especially at the small and medium-sized business level, because even a modicum of automation can make a life-changing difference for an entrepreneur and for a small team.
Absolutely. So next question is going to be, why Salesforce? Why not something different?
It was just an opportunity at the time, much like many who come to Salesforce. Frequently people don't know what it is. And as you start to learn, it turns out that it's a very good ecosystem. They've got a wonderful learning opportunity. Their learning platform is by far the best I've ever encountered. The software is easy to learn. It's very flexible, so you can apply it to many different situations. It's much like myself. It's very dynamic, right? It's a dynamic specialty, frankly. And so it fit very well with my personality, and I really took to it. I think it's an excellent opportunity and an excellent ecosystem. It's very supportive.
Did you find it difficult transitioning from such a hands-on career past to a more technology focused career path?
The one thing that goes through all things is the human, right? We're dealing with the human. In medicine, we learn to deal with the human in a caring mindset, right? We learn how to take care of the patient, not only medically, but as we were talking, there's a human there with a heart that's worried, or that may be worried, that needs that care. And you carry that talent, that piece through. That's what really makes a difference. When you can sit down with a customer, you can make a real human connection, and you can drive in and ask the questions that need to be asked and hear the responses. But you'll never get those if you don't know how to make a connection. And those of us who've been in medicine really know how to do that well, because we're used to connecting with people, and we do it very rapidly. I mean, think about a nurse in an ER, right? You're seeing your patient, you got what, an hour, 2 hours with most patients, generally speaking, right? Even a floor nurse, though, you don't get to spend forever with them, and you have to establish rapport and a connection rapidly. And that's the same thing as when you're dealing with a client as a consultant. You need to be able to walk in, establish that kindness, that rapport, that connection, and then be able to understand what it is they need and provide that for them. It really is no different, honestly. It's just a different tool.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think in the healthcare field, we can see something and we're like, great, that needs to be fixed, and I know how to fix it. And I found with Salesforce, it's so easy to go, okay, here's your problem pipeline. Here's what we can do, and we can fix it. I think that has been one of the easier parts of the transition from, like I said, a more healthcare focused hands-on role into something more technological.
I agree.
Circling back to your beginning Salesforce career, what were some of the challenges that you had faced in getting your first? I know you said you only did 52% of that first trailhead, and then you were just pounding to focus on the force.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big obstacle. And as often is the case, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? As you're stepping out, you have to be able to persist in the failures, in the face of failure, because failure is the only way to learn, frankly. And in IT, you got to try stuff. And when you find out it doesn't work, you just try a different pathway. I probably could have reached out and asked for more help. I had that little bit of an independent mindset. But really learning how to navigate the whole ecosystem. I'll say it wasn't until probably 2 years into my Salesforce career where I really started to get a handhold on what was going on. I relied heavily on my BA skills and my people skills to get me through the day-to-day work. And that's where they used me a lot. They didn't let me do a lot of hands-on configuration, but they really utilized my ability to connect with people, ask the questions, document that, and then help the solutions team develop a solution from that perspective. And so I think really getting to understand what Salesforce really was and how big it is and what it can do, because we hear at the beginning it's a CRM, but I mean, I've applied it at the government, I've applied it in construction companies, we use it for project management. Heck, we've even built a companion app for our scaling up process, our corporate planning process inside of Salesforce. It's a CRM. It's not meant to help you plan your corporate growth, but here it is. We're using it for that tool, for that thing. Yes.
That's awesome. Going back to the first part of that answer there, what would you say are some of I know we hear a lot about hard skills and soft skills. Obviously, a lot of the hard skills from medicine aren't going to transfer over to a more tech-focused role. What are some of the soft skills that you feel like you accrued over your healthcare career that really helped you transition into a Salesforce administrator and a Salesforce consultant?
Oh, geez. The leadership skills, as you know, in EMS, people, once we arrive on scene, people look to us to be the source of leadership, to tell them what to do. And it often doesn't matter. Fire, police might be on scene already, but the ambulance pulls up and it's an ambulance and it's a medical call. Folks look to us for that guidance and what to do. And that's very useful in the day-to-day consulting, because a lot of times your customers are looking to be told what to do. They don't know. They've called you in because they need an expert, somebody to lead them and guide them. And I think that is one of the major soft skills that really has helped me succeed, is that I was able to lead, even because, as you know, on the streets, oftentimes we're not entirely sure what's going on, but we know that we need to take the next step. And consulting's the same way. All right, we can't figure everything out today. Well, how about we take that first step? Airway, breathing, circulation, right? Tell me about your business process. What do you have in place already? Do you have any of your processes documented? It's always the same assessment, no matter what business, when you start out at the base.
Absolutely. Leading into my next question here, what were some of the challenges that you had faced going from the medical field into landing your first Salesforce job? Obviously, the 52% and taking the test 6 times, I'm sure that didn't help you out too much. But what were some of the issues that you came up with when applying to roles? And I hope it wasn't 169 of them hand delivered.
Oh, right. I think it was knowing what I wanted to do first, right? Medicine was my passion for my entire life, and I still absolutely love to discuss medicine. I just have no desire to practice anymore. And so I was lost for quite a few years, trying to find the thing it was that I wanted to do that could meet my goals, because I'd sat in the ambulance thinking I wanted to help more people, right? I mean, max I can get in a daily shift, let's say an 8-hour shift, is I'm going to get 7 to 8 patients that I can help. That's kind of slow. And I thought, oh, maybe politics. Well, that's not quite where I want to be. Being an entrepreneur, I thought, would be that opportunity to help more people, but I didn't know in what. I mean, who would pay me to do anything that I love doing enough that I could help other people? And so finding that thing that gave me the ability to meet my life's goal was hard. I had no idea until I stumbled across Salesforce. And so making that transition, just getting there, I think was the biggest obstacle, because it took a lot of perspective.
The only reason why it wouldn't work is if it was in the middle of the bandana, then it would cover.
Thank you. Continue, Josh. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
I was scrolling and I accidentally hit on your mic, Joshua.
That's all right. That's all right. So yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge. I mean, once I found it and I began to understand what the power of what it was that I found and the value that could bring to people's lives and how I could use it to meet my goal of helping others, I think it was pretty easy after that, because Salesforce makes the pathways very clear for you, right? Get your app built. Well, now you get your associate, get your app built, to get your admin, get your consultant, maybe move into dev, maybe advanced admin, but they make it a very clear pathway. But I think just getting it was probably a big challenge.
Okay. Would you say that that's what inspired you to move into owning your own consulting firm, is just your passion for helping people?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think that was what really drove me. Yeah, I like helping other people and giving them opportunities. I did it in my first business, and this business is really giving the opportunity to help change people's lives pretty significantly.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty resounding answer when you talk to everybody coming from the healthcare field, transitioning into something different. Is like, why do you do healthcare? Well, I want to help people. Well, why are you transitioning out? Well, because I want to help people in a different way. And we don't always have to help them with our hands, right? We don't always have to save their lives, like we were chatting about earlier. Sometimes it's just somebody to listen and somebody to hold their hand and say, everything's going to be okay.
I still do that with my clients. I mean, there's a lot of people who really just need to hear it's going to be okay, because they may have their bosses yelling at them. They may have, deadlines they need to make. They may not be meeting their quotas for sales and so forth, and they're looking for somebody to help them. And the first step is just like, calm down. It's going to be all right. We're going to work through this. We're going to get you where you're going. It's going to take a minute.
Absolutely. What are some of the challenges that you face owning a consulting firm when you first started?
Wow. Well, I'm going to take off my shoes to start counting.
It's been so easy from here, but now we're getting to the stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, number one was being having a bankruptcy under my belt, right? I'm a firm believer in experiencing to learn, right? And failure is part of experiencing. And the only time you fail is when you stop, right? So you got to reach out, get past your comfort zone, and you learn in that space. Well, unfortunately, mine cost me quite a bit. And the financial community is not so accepting of that learning experience. And so bootstrapping my own company was a challenge, as some folks who were on the call to begin with, understanding that not only do you have to earn enough for yourself, you have to earn enough to support the next person coming on until they can begin to earn. And chances are you can't afford a full-fledged individual who's capable of operating on their own. So you need to bring somebody in that you can afford to keep on your salary, share your salary with until they can become fully billable. And so I think funding the growth was one of the most frustrating parts, because I had to do it out of pocket in a bootstrap manner, which slows you significantly. And that turned out to be a blessing in disguise, frankly, because I might have gone faster than I really needed to be moving at that time. So I had to really learn. I had to pay attention. I had to be very frugal about what was going on. I think that was the number one biggest. The second was I'm not great at selling, or I haven't been. I've learned over time how to sell, but finding clients, if you haven't been in the ecosystem for 20 years and have a book of clients that you can immediately turn to and say, please, I'd like to work for you, that's challenging. And finding those clients is not an easy task. In fact, we're just starting to figure out how to find new business. Like we're using the tools that we share, that we implement for other people, and we're beginning to use those processes for ourselves, and it's starting to bear fruit. But I'll tell you, I've been working at it since 2018. It's been a couple of years of figuring it out, trying different things, and then doing more of what really works and not doing the things that don't work. But that's experimentation, and you got to stay alive during that period of time.
Absolutely. What is the size of clients that you work with at Dynamic?
That's an interesting question. We focus on the small and medium sized businesses right now because we can do the greatest amount of good for them in the shortest period of time. And we're a small and medium sized business, so we know their plight. We can bring our experience to the table and say, hey, this is how you can start to use Salesforce, and then we can grow you into the other things Salesforce can do for you, keeping you on budget while returning on that investment immediately. However, I say that, and then we subcontract to a large Salesforce implementer, and we subcontract to the federal government. And so because of my dynamic skill set and background, we find ourselves in different environments that we might not otherwise be in, purely because of my previous exposure.
Awesome. So your work in DC definitely helped.
Oh my goodness, by far. We're actually returning to DC probably in July, and we'll be relocating there so that purely for that reason, so that we can continue to grow business, because I think the networking there is superior.
Yeah, those lifelong connections are definitely invaluable.
Yes, I agree.
How many employees do you have at Dynamic right now?
7.
Wow, 7. And what would you say if I were to ask one of your employees, what is the culture at Dynamic like?
I think they'd say it's pleasant. I really care about my employees, and I'll tell you, most of my employees are either friends or family at this point, and that's usually how you start a business. We in fact just hired, for the federal contract, the first person outside of my personal network that one of our existing employees brought in. Our subcontractors, we have subcontractors outside of my personal network, but I mean, we started with the core group of my friends and family, and I dearly care about those people. I care about all my employees, but when it's family, you care even more. And so I try to share the benefits and the profits, what we earn with them, because it's their time that's being traded for what we're earning. So they deserve to reap the benefits and the rewards. And so I try to make it an enjoyable environment, as well as having a place where we can do good work and create profits. Good.
So I would much akin to the healthcare environment, one big family, right?
One big family. I truly care about my employees. I really do love them, honestly.
Awesome. Do you offer unlimited PTO?
I do.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
But being a small business like we are, we all understand that when one of us takes time, the others have to pull harder. And so I don't have to be like, hey, you can't take time off. I have to be, hey, please take time off. You need to go regenerate. Because they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave anybody else, because they too care and they too love.
I would say that is the exact opposite of healthcare. Time off. Yeah, I would say that is the exact opposite. They want to work you to the bone and get as much out of you as they can. So it's nice to see. It's nice to see the contrast there. For Dynamic Specialties, what is your guys' growth looking like right now? Obviously, you just hired another employee, and you've got a government contract. What else are we looking at in the future?
So we've seen for the first 4 years, we've seen over 100% growth year after year. Last year, we slowed into about the 65% growth as far as end of year margins went. However, we increased the size of the company significantly, focused heavily on internal processes, learning how to do the sales, learning how to do the marketing for ourselves rather than just supporting others in it. And so last year I saw as an investment in our future growth. This year I am focusing on and throttling our growth back. folks who haven't owned a business may not understand, but growth is a cash hungry beast and it can kill your company if you're not careful about it. And so I don't actually want to continue to grow at 100% year after year right now. I would rather throttle that back, become more efficient in our processes, increase our margins at the end of the day because we're better at what we do, and enable my employees to be stable and prepare ourselves to launch into the next years.
Fantastic. Leads me right into my next question. What do you like most about your job? And what do you like the least about your job?
I love helping people. Every one of my employees has had a life-changing benefit from taking a job with my company. That to me is the one thing I sleep well about. I want to help thousands of people eventually, and we've got a good start on that now. And so that's what makes me feel good. I don't currently enjoy the fact that I have to work 60 hours a week to meet that goal. I don't like sitting in this office every day, all day long. I would prefer to be out in nature and so forth. And so I'm personally working on that life work balance so that I can enjoy the same benefits that I offer to my employees. And but that's the nature of the beast, and you have to be ready to accept that when you decide to start a company.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow-up question for that. After those 60-hour weeks, what are you doing to kind of recenter, refocus, and de-stress yourself on Sunday at 9 p.m. at night when that's the only time that you've got available?
So I study the martial arts. I study strategy through the sword. That helps a great deal. So I attend dojo 3 or 4 times a week. That does a lot to help me de-stress and recenter. I love being in the outdoors, so I like to go skiing, mountain biking, paddle boarding. In fact, my brother's coming up next week. I blocked out the afternoons all week so we can go skiing half day. So I like to spend time outdoors and then catch up on Netflix when there's an opportunity, I suppose.
There we go. Coming up on the last couple of questions here. What are some of your personal goals that you would like to accomplish in the next 1 to 5 years?
Wow, I'd like to return. Yeah, I'd like to return.
More about you.
I'd like to return to a normal workday. Honestly, I'd like to get closer to the 8-hour workday. I'd like to grow the company to a point where it's stable without me. I think that's critical as an entrepreneur, is to build a company that doesn't depend on you, and remove that ego from the process so that I don't need to be here and the company can thrive in my absence, which will allow me to follow up on some of my other goals. Like I'd really like to hike. My brother hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. Maybe I don't want to do the PCT, but I'd like to do an extended trail for a little bit. I'd love to travel more. It's been a while since I've been abroad, and I'd love to see India, honestly. So I'd like to get out and about a bit more.
Awesome. All right. Last question, guys. What advice would you give to someone who's transitioning into Salesforce?
Get a mentor.
Mm.
Number one difference in my life is when I found a mentor, somebody who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, somebody who could work as a sounding board, who had the experience to be like, oh, don't do that. Maybe consider this. Somebody to help guide you in this process. And that's what this group is so great for, is that somebody who's already made the transition is there to help guide you in making the transition. When I built my veterans program at UC Santa Cruz, we used peer mentoring, and it worked very well for the military because we've been trained in it already. We used somebody who had already made the journey to guide somebody who wanted to make the journey, because there's pitfalls all the way along, and somebody who's made it across those is much better prepared to guide somebody who has to go across those in doing it successfully, because they can see, oh, remember this, that's going to catch you if you don't do it. So find a mentor, find somebody who's done what you're trying to do, and then work with them and listen to them. That may be the hardest thing, is just listening. So find somebody that you connect with well, though, because you're going to need to share time and space with them for an extended period of time. And I find that those mentorships that are established or forced through like a Match.com type scenario where somebody, it's like, oh, here's your mentor, good luck. If you don't have that relationship built where there's the true caring on both sides, it makes it very hard to listen to them, because as a mentee, you have to believe that your mentor isn't going to hurt you. And as a mentor, you have to understand that ultimate responsibility that your mentee is going to listen to you and you can't hurt them. And that's usually established through, as we've talked about before, that human connection, right? That caring and that kindness. And so find a good mentor, listen to what they say. You should have no problem making a successful future for yourself.
Fantastic. I lied. I have one more question for you. Just finished. We're gonna talk about somebody who's just finished their. I've just finished my admin trailhead. I've taken the exam and I've passed. I'm making my resume. What are some of the biggest things that I should put either on LinkedIn, on my resume, or just when reaching out to people that's going to help me get seen and get interviews, get out in front of people? Coming from you as a business owner who looks at, I'm sure, multiple resumes every day for people looking for a job.
So one of the things, okay, getting recognized is challenging. It takes a lot of time. You're in the social media ecosphere, right? And look at all those posts. How do you surface to the top? Colors, interesting posts, relevant material, basic social media marketing. But if you're in an area where you can go down and knock on doors and shake hands, you immediately rise above all that other chaff, right? All that other chaff in the social media world. When you're standing in front of somebody, when you're dressed nicely, you smile and you introduce yourself, that immediately gets you past all of the other people who are sitting on LinkedIn asking to be looked at. And if it's a job you care enough about, or you think it's an opportunity, take the trip. Maybe you're a couple hours away from where you might want that job. Well, make a weekend out of it and go say hi to somebody, even if you don't have an appointment, go say hi. I think that's probably the number one way. I like phone calls. People have reached out and just called me and texted me like, "Hey, Josh, I'd like to talk to you." Oh, well, I might not have answered you on LinkedIn, but reaching past the easy route, right? LinkedIn's easy. So you might have to take that next step to get past what everybody else is doing to be recognized. But I will tell you something that I found exceptionally frustrating to date is people that are inflating their experience to make it look like they're more experienced than they are. That never works out for anybody. And so be honest about where you are in your career. Tell them your experience, share your medical background. I mean, I did a card trick at an interview once, totally failed, but I mean, it was different. And it showed that I was willing to try. I talked about how my medical background might work, how my counterintelligence background helps me interview people better. I'm a trained interviewer, right? And so, yeah, of course, counterintel and Salesforce have nothing to do with each other, except I went to DoD's counterintelligence school and they spent 3 months teaching me how to talk to people and get the information that I need. Well, let me tell you, that's what a BA does. That's what a consultant does. Well, that's a very clear pathway for me to enter into the Salesforce ecosystem. Sure, I'm not configuring, but everybody's got to start somewhere, and it's usually sweeping the floor and pushing the wheelbarrow. So take that job, get that opportunity and learn. You might take a pay cut, but in the long run, it's going to be well worth it.
Yeah. Again, back to those soft skills.
Always. You are so much more qualified than you believe you are. And it just takes somebody to help you understand that.
Awesome. Josh, thank you so much for letting me interview you. I hope that everyone who is here had a great time and learned at least one thing from this. Do you have any questions for me, Josh?
So a lot of my coworkers and folks in my network are always looking for new hires and so forth. Where would they go to access the folks coming out of this group who are getting their admin certs and looking for jobs? Where can they go find those people and ask them to come interview?
So I know that they've been putting stuff in the chat of this Zoom, but I'm going to defer to Lori on this because I believe she's setting up a page where she's put everybody's info. Is that correct, Lori?
Yeah, so everyone, I'm going to post it again in the chat box. I just finished this morning. You can enter your information there if you're job searching, and that website is built on experience. And Andrew, there are quite a few questions in the chat box. Maybe what we'll do is we'll call them one by one. They can unmute themselves and ask the questions that they posted.
Sure, I've got time. I was planning on being here for another 20 minutes, so I'm more than happy to answer whatever I can.
All right, we will call on Islam to ask his questions. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Islam.
Hi, Joshua. Thank you so much. Hi, Lori. Hi, Ivy. So I just wanted to learn about starting a new business. The marketing piece is a little bit challenging, finding clients. I have an LLC and I'm building some independency. So it's basically how do you get clients?
Yeah, that is the question, right? So dive into your personal networks first, people you've worked with, companies you worked for in the past. I found that being a subcontractor was a great start. That gave me the opportunity to work with somebody that already knew my work ethic, knew my capabilities, and was willing to take a chance on my new company so I could get a start and begin to learn. Subcontracting is a great way to get in the door and begin to understand. Some larger firms are actually very open to mentoring junior and new companies. I've been very fortunate with the one that I'm working with. They've been very kind in teaching me some of the ins and outs in that marketing and sales process as I was doing work for them. And so, take what you can get. Chances are your first clients probably aren't going to be the best clients, but you've got to start someplace and then grow from there. You will find the right client, and all you have to find is one, and they can really help grow your company significantly. They're your anchor client, as it may be called. Sometimes that client can really help make a difference. And then ask for referrals. Ask everybody, hey, I'm a Salesforce company starting up. Would you be kind enough to refer me to anybody that might need my services? And the better you get at defining who that anybody is and what those services are, the easier it is for them to make that referral to you.
I do have a question too. So how long were you in Salesforce before you decided to start your company? Because I can just imagine how scary it is. Takes a lot of courage to actually make that move.
Absolutely. You're welcome, Islam, by the way. Thank you for the question. Lori, so I was, so after I closed my last business that failed, I immediately opened up another LLC. So I had a methodology by which to bill when I was out doing work, because I was still working on my own. I didn't necessarily have a job. And so Dynamic Specialties Group started as that LLC. And that was in early 2018. However, it was at the same time that I was learning Salesforce. I like to think of my actual start where I really started working Dynamic Specialties Group as a Salesforce consulting firm at the beginning of 2020, when I was able to rejoin my USDA contract. And then I really started pouring into growing the company as a Salesforce company, because the revenue from that USDA contract allowed me to hire in other individuals to begin to do work while I was busy working on the USDA contract.
Okay, Med, I see your question here. You could go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm just wanting to ask Josh about hiring remote workers from overseas. I'm from North Africa. It's 2 a.m. Here.
Wow.
How flexible companies with remote people from overseas or Asia, Eastern Europe?
We originally started out using offshore resources in India that really helped us get our start before we could afford to hire our own developers. And that was a temporary relationship. It worked well at the time, and we've grown to all onshore at this point. But in the larger firm that I work with, there's many nearshore resources from Colombia, some South America area. It's easier to work with because they're on the same time schedule. However, a lot of small and medium-sized businesses are willing to work past the time difference in exchange for the flexibility in billing rates and that increased talent that you can access at distance. And so it all depends on where you land and what they're looking for. Oftentimes I find that it's valuable to have somebody onshore here doing the BA work, the consulting work, who's got that warm relationship with the client. They can gather the requirements, they can understand what's needed, and then they can write good requirements and user stories and hand them off to the offshore resources. I find that to be a situation that works well. The only problem is it slows development a little bit because there's usually a 12-hour cycle for question and response time frame. And so it depends on the speed of the client. It really, honestly, there's not a great answer here. It depends situation, but it shouldn't dissuade you in attempting to reach out. And there's other markets than just the US that are growing in the Salesforce ecosystem. I mean, in the UK, they're really just starting to catch on and really desiring Salesforce to Salesforce implementers. In India, that market is just going gangbusters. I've been trying to figure out how to get in myself there. And so don't just focus on the US based work. There is a lot of work internationally. If you can speak multiple languages, or if you're bilingual, multilingual, you have a great opportunity to interact in many areas. And so don't limit yourself just to here. That's what I would say, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, I do have a follow-up question for Josh. So you are a Salesforce partner?
I am.
So what does it take to be one? And how is there some sort of like referral system, and how does Salesforce refer some clients to you?
No, not right now. Well, okay. So to become a Salesforce partner isn't that hard, or it wasn't during COVID. And so you come on as a provisional partner, and then you have to earn your status to be put up on the App Exchange. They just changed it in the last 2 years, how you earn that partner status. It used to be that you get your 5-star CSATs in enough projects, and then you're a partner. Now they do it by silo. It's Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, part out. You pick your specialty. You got to have 3 projects in that space with a satisfactory rating. Then they'll list you on the App Exchange under that. I found that we're still working to get all of that lined up, and you have to renew it every year, right? So every year you've got to rework that process to maintain a partnership. And then there's, of course, a fee associated with it. You know, why wouldn't there be? And so, but I found that to get referrals from Salesforce is selling. They sell like a beast. They've got an entire sales ecosystem, but they don't have a delivery team. And so go find those sales folks and see what you can do to get to work with them to help them sell better. And when they succeed, you succeed. And so you should probably never approach a sales team or even anybody asking for something. Always show up offering something. And then when they win, you win. And when you both win, well, everybody wins and you win more, right? And so always think about what you can give away. Give away your value first. And that's how I've gotten most of my clients. I've always offered to jump in and do what I can to help right out the gate.
Okay, Arvina, it's your turn to ask your question.
Oh, hello, Joshua. My question is, what are the resources you mentioned that you work with other partners, any resources from other partners that have helped you to be successful, to be a Salesforce entrepreneur?
I think the experience, honestly. So the other partners that I've worked for, I don't necessarily get business referrals from to date, though I do take a great deal of comfort in knowing that they're there so that I can go pitch larger companies that might be outside of my comfort zone or my ability to deliver on, knowing that I can pivot to that other partner and ask them for support to help me deliver on a larger contract. If Marriott walked in today and said, "Hey, Josh, we want you to do our implementation," well, me and my 7-man team are probably going to be a little stressed on that. But if I reach out to that partner I work with and tell them, "Hey, I've got an opportunity where we can both win here, where we can work together. You can get a piece, I can get a piece, and we can deliver a quality product to the client. Everybody wins." That gives me a lot of confidence to go out and try to sell beyond a space that I am comfortable in. But I would really say that subcontracting experience that I've had has really helped grow my just grow me as an entrepreneur, grow me as a businessman to be better at what I'm doing and support my team better. So I think it was the experience more than the dollars they could give me.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Though I will say the billable time has been very helpful in growing the company, especially when you're bootstrapping it. So that's important to point out.
Mhm. Okay, Crystal, it's your turn now.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Josh. My question is, what clouds does your company work in?
You know, so of course, Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, which work out really well for most small businesses, that's where they need to start. They don't generally need something that's complex and fancy. Many clients will show up just like when you're 16, right? "Oh God, I want a Porsche." But what 16-year-old really needs a Porsche, right? What they really need is a Honda Civic. They need to drive for a couple of years, and then they can start to understand what a car is, and then they can upgrade it. And they'll probably not go into a Porsche, right? They're probably, best case scenario, go to like a Durango or something. And I use that analogy because it works very well in the small to medium-sized business space. frequently we're dreaming of this big thing, this big technology tool that's going to solve all our problems, but we don't really understand our problems yet. We haven't encountered them. And so what we need to do is get a base implementation in place, a good Sales Cloud implementation that's solid, that they can use today and begin to get a return on that investment today, because small businesses don't have a lot of money to wait for that runway is not very long. So they need that return right away. Once they get in and they start using Salesforce and they can see the automation and stuff, because it's hard to understand business automation without ever experiencing it. And so we get that Sales Cloud or that Service Cloud implementation. We might integrate their MailChimp. We might bring in their QuickBooks, right? Might use Breadwinner to bring in their QuickBooks. We might do a Pardot implementation if they're a little bit further along in their marketing endeavors, and let them get used to using the tool. And then within about 3 to 4 months, they start to be like, oh, hey, can we bring this in here too? Can we do this here? Even myself, I'm a dev. I'm a Salesforce dev. I've been a consultant for years. I didn't walk into my own org and be like, oh my God, I'm going to have my corporate planning tool in here, right? I walked in and set up my Sales Cloud instance. It's like, how else can I use this? And that's when we tried to build our own project management tool, which we found out was a bad idea. It's easier to buy the App Exchange, Accordo, right? We got an Accordo app. We got Accordo in as our project management tool. And we start to look like now we're bringing Breadwinner in to manage the QuickBooks Online integration. We built the Scaling Up app, and that's helping us manage our corporate planning. And so you see, even as an expert in it, I still needed to be able to see it in my business and understand how I could leverage it. And then on a day-to-day, I was exposed more and more. And I thought, well, what else can I bring into this tool? Time and attendance is now in there. Salesforce is the hub of my business.
That's awesome. Okay, Ariel, you have a question too. It's your turn.
Yes, so I am curious of what areas of support do you offer your clients once the projects are complete? Like, do you have managed services or like ongoing support, like a ticketing system for issues? How do you, like, what's your methodology for that?
We're pretty low tech right now, honestly. Clients email us their challenges and we keep going. So we do the Jumpstart, right? So we've got a Jumpstart Express and then a Jumpstart Advance. Express has no automation. Advance has a little bit of automation in there to get them started and rolling down the road. So that usually takes between 30 and 60 days to implement. Once we implement, I don't like monthly contracts where they got to pay me a fee every month and use it or lose it. That doesn't, in my mind, that doesn't build trust. We might have to go there someday to maintain the company, but we're small enough now that we can handle our operations in a managed services scenario where the client reaches out when they need us rather than a prepaid lump sum of money. That seems to work out really well. When I'm looking at the actual numbers, I think the numbers are about the same in the long run, except the feeling of it is very different. The client doesn't feel exploited, like, oh, I'm going to lose that money. They're like, man, I'm so happy that you're here. Please let me pay you to do more work for us, because inevitably they're getting that experience I previously talked about, right? They got a little problem here. They'd like to bring something else in here, and it grows over time. But at no point is the client stuck. And I think that's important. It keeps us working hard, right? We can't relax. We have to stay firm in the harness, and it keeps the client, they feel good about it. They don't feel like I'm taking something from them. Nothing's being done to them that they don't like.
Awesome. Dwayne, it's your turn.
Hey, Josh, how do you find the right Salesforce professionals to help grow your business, to hire?
I'm still working that one out, honestly. That's a challenge. So it's the personal connection, right? And so finding somebody that fits the company culture is far more important to me than finding somebody who's technically qualified. I've got subcontractors. I have enough talent in-house that I can take the time to grow somebody, nurture somebody who fits our corporate culture. However, if I bring somebody in who doesn't fit the culture, that can destroy a company from the inside out. Somebody can eat from the inside. And so they may be the best developer in the world. They might have the most talent. They might be the greatest solutions architect in the world, right? They've sat for their CTA. They've made it but if they're mean, if they're egotistical, if they don't care about the others around them, they're not a good fit. And so I've read a lot of books on it. I think probably one of the best books I ever read is Who? And that talks about the hiring process more. almost like dating, honestly. It's like meet. And it's like 6 months down the road, you're like, this is the person that's going to come to our company. And by the time we get to that decision, it's a privilege on both sides to work together. They know us, we know them, and it's there's far less surprises. So I always try to go with the personal recommendation. Like the gentleman we just hired that's outside of my personal circle, he's in the personal circle of one of my employees. And so I trust my employees with everything. They have full access to our money. They have full access to all of our records. My employees, I trust 100%. And so if the employees say that this is a good person that'll fit our culture, I'm willing to give that opportunity. I'm willing to give them an opportunity and try it out. So I would say referrals are the number one way to find good people, because it's about that cultural fit.
I bet you there are a lot of people now who want to ask if you have openings.
Not yet, not right now, but we're growing. So stay in touch. Never know.
Okay, Ivy, it's your turn. Ivy has a
Thank-
great question.
Thank you, Lori. Joshua, I was wondering, how do you approach a client who is hesitant to implement Salesforce?
You know, I found that I don't. The client needs to be convinced that they want it, they need it, and they're committed to it. If they are not, then it's likely not going to work. You're going to spend a lot of time trying to convince them, and as a small business, that time's expensive. That's time that you could be put elsewhere to a client who is ready to move forward. And so being honest and upfront, like just being direct. Hey, do you want to implement Salesforce? Do you have the budget to implement Salesforce? Does your team have the time and capacity to commit to implementing Salesforce? Because Salesforce is change. Humans don't do change very well, right? And so the business not only needs to have the desire and the money, but they need to have that bandwidth to be able to lose the operating, that operations capacity that they're going to devote over to actually implementing Salesforce, because it's going to sap their people, or at least some of their people, to some degree until it's up and running and they've made that transition and adopted fully. And so I think trying to convince somebody that they need Salesforce is a very challenging situation. I try to find people who are already aware that they would like to bring Salesforce on board, and then qualify them and see if they can afford to do so on all levels, not just the dollars.
Excellent.
Thank you, Joshua.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Okay, one last question from Shelley. Go ahead, Shelley.
Hey everyone. When I transitioned to Salesforce and really got thrown into the fire, I was shocked kind of to learn how often Salesforce is never really just Salesforce. The clients need and want so much integration work. And I was just curious, with you being an entrepreneur, if your Jumpstart services include the integration work, or is that additional?
You know, it depends. So it depends on how complex it is. We're pretty reasonable folks. And so we're willing to swap out pieces and parts of the Jumpstart to get the client where they need to be. Of course, you always have to account for scope creep, because Jumpstarts are usually at a reduced rate to get the client on board, so that you can continue to help them grow into the future as they realize their return on investment. But you're right, integrations are critical. I don't think integrations need to occur immediately. I think they need to learn Salesforce, because too much change at once will almost certainly cause a project to fail. Most small and medium-sized businesses don't have the bandwidth to take on drastic change. Even large enterprise implementations have a real challenge with doing drastic change. So I believe in the phased approach. Get a good, solid base implementation, let them learn how to use it, then begin to bring in the pieces as they go. If they have critical pieces of their business that need integrated up front, you need a real serious consideration of how that's going to flow for them. And I still don't believe it should all be done at once. I think it can be included in the original project, but I think it should be rolled out in a phased implementation using a very agile approach to the situation, because what they think they need at the beginning and what they end up needing in the end is often fairly different. And you have to be flexible along that pathway, especially in the small business space, where they're oftentimes developing process as they're implementing the tools.
All right, this has been such an excellent session, Joshua. We appreciate all the insights that you've shared with us. And I'm sure a lot of us here are very appreciative also of what we all learn. And this is just, you're the first one that we interviewed who has his own company and is a Salesforce partner. Such a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's a great thing you folks are doing here. This is important work. And so, and you're changing lives. You're changing lives.
We appreciate so much of your time.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Laura. You have a great evening.
You too. For the people who would like to participate in our raffle, you stay behind and we will do that. Thank you so much, Josh.
Have a good night, folks.
Josh.
Good night. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see?
Yes.
All right, I have a long list here. Oops. All right. We'll see who's the lucky winner. Well, sorry, Ivy. So, Dog, you'll have to PM me your address.
Thank you.
You're in the Philippines, right?
No, I'm not. I'm actually in
Oh,
Athens.
yes, you're here.
From AJ.
All right, good. I don't know, for some reason, I thought you were in the Philippines.
Filipino X, yeah, the other group that we're both involved in.
That's right. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. I hope you learned a lot. I did. Even my husband enjoyed it. All right.
Yeah, thanks for hosting, AJ.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to do it. I
Yes,
really
AJ,
appreciate it.
you did really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop recording.